Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bittner and Ash Paulson to discuss Nintendo's year in review for 2015. So, let's get started. Alright guys, 2015's come and gone. I thought it'd be a good time to reflect on Nintendo's performance this year. So, they had a bunch of games actually this year, although of varying quality, which we'll get to. Now, unfortunately this year also marked the passing of Nintendo's president, being Satoru Iwata. Which, of course, I mean, I don't even need to say it, it was very sad news. And it came at a time when he was basically, as far as we can tell, in the process of turning the company around. And of course, as a result, we now have a new president being Kimishima, who seems to be holding true to the ideals and the game plan that Iwata has set up, basically. At any rate, while that is big news, that of course doesn't really affect Nintendo's overall performance this year at all. You know, they had a trajectory and they stuck to it, and that seems to be the case even moving forward as well. So, anyways, with that out of the way, let's get to the games, basically. What did you guys think of Nintendo's year this year?
The passing of Iwata is sadly big news. You know, it's news that we don't want, or never wanted, really. And it's still left to be seen to see how Nintendo moves on from this event. It's been too soon for that to actually come into any real play that we can, you know, quantify in any real way. But as far as games, it was a lot of smaller games punctuated with some pretty big surprise hits, and unfortunately, it left it with sort of left it as an uneven year for me. I mean, there's still stuff in here that I really enjoyed and could highly recommend to people, but nothing out here that I think had that widespread appeal that obviously Smash Brothers or Mario Kart had last year. Now, there's still stuff in here that obviously did incredibly well and is awesome, but I definitely think it's a lesser year than 2014 for Nintendo. Not that that's a bad thing. We still have some generally decent games.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's no question that 2015 was kind of a subpar year compared to 2014. It was okay in its own context, but consider the fact that for Nintendo Day last year, November 21st, we went from Smash Brothers to this year, which was Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival and Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, which kind of says it all. But I mean, it was a year dotted with sparse good releases, but it was just kind of an uneven year overall. I think we can tell pretty easily that Iwata's death, as tragic as it was, really did have an appreciable effect on Nintendo's inner workings, because we went from E3 or July when he passed to all the way to November, almost the end of November, without a Nintendo Direct. So that says everything right there. I mean, his passing must have caused quite a bit of turmoil within the company itself, and during a year which was already, to me, kind of a year where they were treading water. For me, this year felt like they were treading water to kind of pass time with the Wii U until they can get to the NX's launch, and I give them credit for that. I mean, they continue to give Wii U owners a reason to have their system, which I appreciate. Despite the fact that the Wii U is performing horribly in the marketplace, they continue to support it wholeheartedly, and I'm glad that they are.
This year was a little bit weird, because it definitely did feel like they're treading water, but it didn't seem like that. It didn't seem like that would be entirely the case originally, where when we did our discussion last year of going into the next year, being this year, it actually looked more promising, because at that time we thought Zelda was going to come out and Star Fox was going to come out this year, both of which were pushed to next year, which basically murdered their end of the year. Which is, was kind of limp. I mean, we had Xenoblade, which is great, but it's kind of more of a niche game. That really just left us with Mario Tennis and Amiibo Festival as their, heavy hitters, if you want to call them that. So that was a really weak way of ending the year, and so it's kind of weird, but I don't think this year was bookmarked, or bookended, I should say, by kind of weakness, whereas the middle of the year felt the strongest to me, where we had the awesome introduction to Splatoon, which is I thought a fantastic game, and then a few months later we had Super Mario Maker, which is another Mario game, but a dramatically different take on it, in which you can actually create your Mario levels.
I would say that You say middle of the year, I'd say the summer sucked for Nintendo.
Yeah,
I
it
will
really
say
did.
this right now. There was nothing coming out of Nintendo from the time Splatoon released to the time Super Mario Maker released.
Yeah, I
think
guess
best
it was
we
the beginning
got-
and end of that period where the
Yeah.
highlights were, yeah.
I mean, they started off strong this year by having Majora's Mask 3D come out, and that's an excellent game. That was an excellent update. We had some pretty consistent stuff through the beginning of the year with Kirby and the Rainbow Curse and Codename Steam, personally for me. And there was stuff in there to keep you invested until the promised Star Fox and Zelda Wii U. Obviously, those did not come. So it really does seem that the two big games, at least as far as a widespread audience for this year, was Splatoon and Super Mario Maker. I'd love to toss Xenoblade Chronicles X in there as well, because that is such a fantastic game, and I hear it's doing relatively well. So, but it really is. I mean, when it comes to Nintendo, their best games, the game that's got the most attention this year is definitely Mario Maker and Splatoon.
Well, and where Splatoon's concerned, I really don't think its importance to Nintendo's overall portfolio can be overstated. I mean, it's really the first completely new Nintendo IP since Pikmin, and it's done incredibly well. I mean, it's basically established itself immediately as one of Nintendo's new iconic franchises in their stable of franchises, and they did that with one game. So that alone proves that Nintendo still has what it takes to create a completely viable new IP from scratch. A lot prior to Splatoon, a lot of people had kind of thought maybe they couldn't, and that's why they were relying too heavily on endless Mario and Zelda and Pokemon sequels. But no, Nintendo absolutely can, and they proved it with Splatoon. So as uneven as 2015 has been, I think it's really important to remember just how significant Splatoon is in the grand scheme of things.
I don't disagree. I mean, in a sense, even with as uneven as 2015 was, it might actually have been a more important year than 2014, in the sense that Splatoon is a gigantic new franchise. It is done extremely well worldwide, and especially well in Japan, which is surprising, actually. I didn't expect it to do, perhaps the best, relatively, of all the major territories. Like, it just took off like a rocket there. And even Mario Maker, I feel like, might be the start of a new quasi-spin-off series, whether... who knows what direction they'll go in. But that still is two strong new games that we haven't seen anything of before from Nintendo. So even though there were a lot of smaller releases around them, I almost do think this year might have been more important in terms of that. Because Splatoon is, as you said, it cannot be overstated how important that will be to Nintendo moving forward. Especially because it seems to be targeting a demographic at least slightly different than their usual heavy hitters.
Right.
So I think moving into the NX, that will be an important series moving forward. So,
Oh, absolutely.
On the other side of the coin, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And what I'm talking about there is the Majora's Mask 3D, which is great, but it launched alongside the new Nintendo 3DS XL, which, in true Nintendo fashion, they trumpeted as a big deal and then almost immediately abandoned it. I mean, not abandoned it, but they're not taking advantage of it at all. Like, they might as well have not released it, because the vast majority of games, 3DS games, after Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, don't really make use of the increased power or, the C-Stick of the new 3DS XL at all. So why even release it?
new 3DS is weird because it is a DSi of the 3DS era. It's
Absolutely.
It's a small upgrade to an existing system. Now, I will say, if you're brand new to the ecosystem of the 3DS, it's the best choice. It's got bigger screens, a bigger battery,
Without a doubt.
better 3D.
Better 3D, yeah.
But but if you're upgrading, I mean, they did position this as they basically presented it as a new platform that they can make new games for, and as you mentioned, they used Xenoblade 3D as their showcase. Who knew? I mean, actually, I think we all kind of knew. But that, I mean, if you didn't know Nintendo's history, who would have guessed that would have been the only game coming out to really take advantage of the system? And it is disappointing. Like, if you upgraded to it just, expecting that, it's a huge disappointment. And Nintendo historically has, frankly, sucked at supporting new hardware or accessories. Like, the one exception I can think of is like the Game Boy Color, which it actually did treat with respect as a brand new platform, while also amazingly supporting the Game Boy at the same time. They made games that took a great advantage of both systems, the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, at the same time. That is something they completely failed with a 3DS.
I mean, I do want to give it its fair shake. Like, the C-Stick does make games like Majora's Mask 3D and Super Smash Bros. A lot more playable. I mean, it does appreciably enhance the experience, but it's certainly not vital at all. So, I mean, there has been some use for the new 3DS, but not a whole lot. And Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, I think, is the only game to date that has required the new 3DS to play.
It is a weird thing, because it definitely does enhance the few games that take advantage of it. Like in Smash Brothers, I almost think it's necessary, like having that instant access to the Smash. But then again, I played Majora's Mask 3D without having, on the original 3DS, without having the C-Stick, and I didn't find that encumbered myself much at all.
Right.
I played the original game without having the camera control either, and that wasn't a big deal then. So yeah, it's weird. It's a weird platform, and it really doesn't need to exist.
Well, here's the crazier thing. Like, there was a big deal at the time that the U.S. only got the XL version. Everybody was like, we want the smaller version as well, because we want all those plates that look amazing that Europe and Japan got.
Yeah.
And they released it for us. Along with that, it was only part of that bundle with Happy Home Designer, where we got the smaller version, where we could take care of the plates. I don't know about either of you, but I've never seen plates in stores or them advertise plates in the U.S. at all.
Nope.
I think if you want to take advantage of those, you really do have to import them in order to get these different plates. It just, like, they kind of made a big deal. It's like, yes, we're giving you that smaller version. By the way, the big reason that you want this version, we're not giving it to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Another trend that I think we can look to 2015 is really kind of encapsulating is Nintendo's but like embracing of free-to-play. Like, we've got games like Pokemon Shuffle and Pokemon Picross, which both, unashamedly and unabashedly embrace the free-to-play model, which has pissed off a lot of hardcore fans, but it's not really targeted at them. So, I can see why Nintendo has decided to really go all out on that, because, look at the profits to be made from mobile free-to-play games. It only makes sense. Nintendo Badge Arcade is another great example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny that most of these free-to-play games this year were Pokemon games. Shuffle, Picross, and Rumble World. All three of them were free-to-play games. And then, of course, you got Badge Arcade, which I think is probably the one that makes it the most addictive. I played a bit of Shuffle, but I never got super into it. I never wanted to spend money on it or anything like that. And Rumble World didn't hold my interest, and I don't play Picross games at all. So Badge Arcade was the one that was like I could feel the pull of it the most, but I don't do those types of games and everything else. But it is interesting to see that Nintendo is taking steps into that sort of more mobile market with those types of games. And Shuffle was even released on the iOS, so they are making that move towards cell phone games. Yeah. Another one that's a little odder is Stretchmo, which was free to play, and you can just pick up packs at your leisure and whatever ones you wanted. But if you got all of them, you basically pay for a full downloadable game. It was an interesting take where it's like, yeah, it's sort of free to play, but they're also encouraging you to just spend more money onto it. You might as well just get the full version. Mm-hmm. It's a very odd thing, but it's also, I think it's them testing the waters more so than anything else.
Beyond the examples already, we got Fatal Frame in the US, which starts off as kind of a free-to-play. I guess it's more of a demo. Yeah. But you get the first first couple chapters?
Yeah, first 2 or 3 chapters.
Yeah.
2, yeah.
Before you're able to buy the full game.
Yeah.
Which is something they also haven't really done before. I mean, they've had small demos before, but nothing of this scale, I think. And especially because they handle it differently in North America than they did worldwide, where that wasn't an option, as far as I know. So.
Well, that's because North America was the only region that didn't have
the retail release.
Retail, yeah.
Well, and 2015 also kind of signaled a shift to, I guess, an overall different release model, that at least in my eyes, because typically the Nintendo we've come accustomed to, they're all about these big tentpole releases, and then between those big releases, there's very little, and there's a huge drought, and that sucks for a lot of Nintendo fans. So this year it seems like they had less tentpole releases, but a lot more frequent kind of smaller releases. But it's strange because a lot of those releases were almost instantly were forgotten about. And I'm talking about games like Kirby and the Rainbow Curse and Chibi Robo Ziplash and even Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes. That would be a big that would be a big deal any other year, a new Zelda game. But all the Codename Steam is another one. There are all these games that almost feel like they were sent out to die. But they did, kind of cover those droughts a little better than in previous years.
Yeah, they are covering the droughts, but it's with games that make less of an impact.
Right.
And I'm hoping that's just for this year. I mean, I'm hoping it's just, to get them through the current rough period they're in until they're on the next platforms. But, I mean, I did notice this year, they did seem to be the year of, reusing content. Whether it's Triforce Heroes, or Happy Home Designer, or even to some extent Mario Maker, because all those sprites already existed. And there were a few other games, too, like that. I think even Mario and Luigi is reusing many of the same sprites from the previous game. And we saw a lot of games that just, smaller in scale, even. Like, Mario Tennis games they usually excite me, at the least. I really like Mario Tennis, even though the last game was a bit of a letdown. And then they completely let me down with the Wii U one, Ultra Smash, which had almost nothing new or even worthwhile in that game. It was such a it was a non-release. It's like they took Mario Tennis and just boiled it down to the bare essentials and just threw it out there, and it ultimately just ended up with a completely forgettable experience.
Yeah, which is uncharacteristic of Nintendo. I mean, and again, I preface this with the fact that I hate Metacritic, but if you look at the Metacritic scores for Amiibo Festival and Ultra Smash, they're very low for Nintendo, which, I mean, we all know they're not very good games, but Nintendo doesn't usually release games that are critical failures like that.
Yeah. I mean, they straight up didn't even send out Amiibo Festival until the day before it came out.
Yeah.
Which wasn't, of course, anywhere near enough time for any reviewers to actually review it in time. And that was done very purposefully. They knew...
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's just like Devil's Third, which they didn't even send review copies out because they know that's a turd. And it's so hard for anybody to actually find the game.
Wait, Devil's Turd?
Yeah, that's... way to do the thing
I'm sorry, I had to.
No, everybody's made that joke. Way to be original, Ash.
I know.
It might be worth buying that game just as a collector because it's going to be so rare in the future. You're going to make a lot of money off of it.
I had heard, I don't know how much merit, or I don't know how accurate it was, but I had heard that GameStop apparently only received 50 copies in the entire US or something.
I would not be surprised.
I did actually hear about that. Yeah.
It was very odd because they would occasionally talk about that game and you'd see it and be like, eh. And then, of course, it came out and, of course, Itagaki was going to be himself like, well, you're just not good enough to play my game. Mm-hmm. You're not getting used to the controls or anything else like that. It just... Bayonetta seemed like a partnership that seemed strange at first, but it worked.
Right.
Itagaki and Nintendo, that doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it does, no.
Yeah, so, I mean, looking back at the list, so you actually put together a list, Derek, of all the games Nintendo released this year, and I forgot how many came out this year. It is massive. But then it gets back to the point that I just forgot about them. This year really did seem to be a filler year for the most part, with some of the exceptions we had already mentioned. I mean, again, they did release some really great games. It just really did seem to be a filler year, where even though there was a lot of content, not much left a meaningful impression, and I'm sure that's what Nintendo was going for. At this point, I think they've written off expanding the Wii U beyond what it already is, and they're just kind of riding out the 3DS at this point as well, even though that system has been a relative success. I feel like they're just kind of biding their time until their next platforms at this point, at which point I hope we really will get some more major releases. I think part of it too is last year, 2014 was a huge year, and they released some of their biggest games. We had a new Donkey Kong game, we had a new Mario Kart game, and we had 2 freaking Smash Brothers. That is huge, and how do you even begin to top that? Especially when you did push Zelda out of your main Zelda game out of the year.
Yeah, and I have a feeling they were kind of hoping that with Yokai Watch being so big in Japan, that would carry over in the US as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's only been a modest success. I don't think it's been outright terrible sales-wise. I haven't actually looked that up, but it seems like it's a modest success. Nothing really major. There's certainly no killer app. I mean, that's the sad thing. Some of these smaller games I did enjoy. Rainbow Curse, a lot of fun. Had its problems because you had to look at the gamepad the entire time. Codename Steam, another favorite of mine, and it just did not connect with anybody, which is really sad. But then you got stuff like Mario Party 10, and it's sort of like another example of the Ultra Smash stuff, where they got this new game in this long-running series, and they do crap all with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they did use that as a vehicle to kind of test the functionality of Amiibo, and I guess maybe see what people would be willing to put up with. But we've had this discussion before about how tapping your Amiibo to the gamepad every turn in a Mario Party game is not anyone's idea of a good time. So hopefully, you know, those lessons have been learned, and those mistakes have been made, and in 2016, we can look forward to Amiibo at least being used in more imaginative, interesting ways than how they were in games like Mario Party 10 and Amiibo Festival.
Well, I certainly hope you're right, Ash, and I think this is a good time to end this discussion for now, because we actually end up talking for quite a bit longer about Amiibo, a Nintendo DLC, as well as indie support, and so we're going to continue that in part 2 of our 2015 year in review discussion, coming up very soon. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching. Of course, keep an eye on GameXplain for more on Nintendo and other things gaming as well. Catch you guys later. Bye.